Hey folks, I think it's time for another video in the Corvair Racecar Resurrection series, or saga as it were. I'm going to talk a bit about the interior now that all the bits and pieces are in it. It's ready. Well, actually, I'm waiting for some main bearings to be delivered from Clark's, and then I'm going to start assembling the motor for real. Painting will happen pretty soon, and it's moving. Always the last little bit takes more time than you really want it to. So let's talk about the interior a little bit, and maybe explain some things for people that aren't completely familiar with how a normal or average or typical race car interior or cockpit is put together. Let's see what we got. Okay, first of all, how about the seat? If you'll notice, the seat has our little arms that stick out right around my head. That's called a full containment seat. That's to prevent neck injury if I get hit from the side. It's a not brand new type of seat, but it's an enhancement that's happened in the last 20 years to increase safety. The steering wheel is removable. I think nowadays I need a removable wheel to get in and out easier more than I used to. Right next to the steering wheel is the brake proportioning valve. I'm still using a relatively stock dual master, not a parallel race car master. Parts are sitting on my shelf, but I thought I would keep this really vintage, really the way I raced it back in the 90s. So what that does is it has a valve with a spring inside, and what you can do is cause less pressure to go to the rear brakes in order to keep the rear brakes from locking up. So what happens is, as you turn in the valve, the spring pressure increases, so until you're really pushing hard on it, or relatively hard, you get less pressure to the rear brakes. It's something you adjust as you go along and discover how things work. With the new brake pads and shoes and everything I have, I'll have to be adjusting that. Next to it, there's the pull for the fire system, and a cable runs down here to the fire bottle. And I'll back up a little to see more of the interior. The fire bottle is full of Fe36, which is a gas that's sort of like halon that puts out fires, but halon isn't legal anymore. So Fe36 is a new replacement for it. As the years go on, they keep coming out with safer ways to put out fires, and so far this is the one that's used quite a bit. I have used what's called aqueous foam, AFFF, and that sounds kind of nice because it's done with water, except that they've discovered that it's a carcinogen. So those have been pretty much outlawed too, or they're in the process of being outlawed. There's one valve that releases the gas. You can see it right in the middle of the screen there, that black thing, or nozzle, not a valve. And then there's another nozzle that's back in the engine compartment. See that aluminum tubing runs through the rear firewall and goes back to the engine compartment. A lot of people run both of the nozzles for the driver, but I thought, probably my engine is more valuable than the driver, so I want to save the engine too in case there's a fire. So the big blue cylinder, the aluminum cylinder, is an AccuSump. It's an oil accumulation device, and what happens is when the engine is running, it pumps it full of pressurized oil. And if you ever have any sort of oil starvation, it will squirt a couple quarts in, or however, I forget how many quarts this one is, but several quarts of oil back into the engine, back through a hose into my my tubing that runs to the engine, and the black tubes there, the black hose, that goes up to the oil cooler in the front and it tees into there, along with the oil pressure and some sensors that I have there. Next to it is the MSD, the electronic spark control that I'm putting in. I'm doing the electrical stuff last after the engine's built. So it's sitting there. There's a spark box and then the tach adapter that's there. Similar to what I ran in the 90s, but the new box is digital and more precise and less prone to RF interference. In the right passenger footwell is the battery. The reason it's up in the front there on the side is for weight balance. You want weight up in the front. The reason that the fire bottle is not up in the front is because I didn't feel there was enough room for it up there in case of a side impact. So this way, if there's a side impact, the roll cage and the side of the car can move in a little bit and it'll still protect the fire system. Oh yeah, that thing in the middle there on the floor, that's exhaust gas pyrometer. So I measure the exhaust gas. Since I run leaded gas, I'm not using an air-fuel ratio sensor. Although I may install a couple of them in for temporary tuning use. There's nothing like that now. I tune based on exhaust gas temp and, also the old school look at the spark plugs. What else? Oh yeah. This thing over here, and that's in the middle of the screen now, is the electrical cutoff. It is required so that if there's an accident, all power to the entire car can be cut off. Because I run an alternator, there's an extra wire that actually cuts off the alternator too, because even if the battery is disconnected, if the alternator is running, if the car is running, the alternator will make, it'll just keep running. So that's the interior. The dashboard is relatively minimal. The big round warning light works off of an air pressure sensor in the shroud, so that if the fan belt comes off, there will be no air pressure, and the light will come on. I'm using that instead of any sort of alternator light because I don't always run an alternator. The square one is oil pressure warning light, and then there's the typical oil temp, the tach in the middle of the, on the top of the dash, and oil pressure, oil temp, two head temp gauges, and let's see, what else do I have there? Voltmeter, and then the box that's sitting up on top of the dash is going to replace my old fuse box. Instead of the old style fuses, I'm going to the new ATC, ATO, whatever they're called one, so they're easier to get. So that's the interior, and now the interior is finally done. I've been saying the interior is done for a while, but now it's actually done. And there's there's not much left to do in the car. I know it looks like it's all apart, but that's just part of it. All the white will become blue, or it's actually supposed to be gray primer, and the engine will be in, and then it'll be running, and then there'll be more updates. So until the next time, I'll be talking to you.